All right.
I can't hear you.
Hold on 1 second. You can't hear him? All right. Take it off your head real quick. Say something.
Can you hear me? Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. I turned that up and I still couldn't hear him. I guess it wasn't enough.
Not. Yeah, it's got a weird little.
For my old ears. I'm not using the good set. So.
Yeah, you're not using the OGs.
And good morning. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. It is a beautiful day out there, folks. Get out there and enjoy it. But I'm hoping you take a little time to listen to this show first. As you know, I'm a political activist first. I do this for fun. This isn't my living. I do this because it's a passion and a calling. And I'm always trying to get people informed and motivated and involved. So we're going to start with opportunities to get involved. We're not alone in this county in a lot of the things we're complaining about, how we're seeing a shift to the left, and the left does not seem to care about freedom, believes in censorship, wants more government. And COVID revealed a lot of that. We have neighbors to the south in Tulare, and they're starting to get organized. If the whole Central Valley was organized and we were connected, wouldn't we be stronger? So we have an event Saturday, 3/19. It's a Tulare County Freedom Rally at Zumwalt Park. It is from 12 to 3, and it is at 4000 East Tulare Avenue. I know a lot of those folks. Some of the Hanford folks, Kings County will also be there. Multiple political candidates. Get out there and get connected. When you stand alone, it seems like it's hopeless, like we can't change this. But when you stand in a group, all of a sudden you go, oh, where are all these points of light? It's hard to stand alone, but in a group, it's a lot easier. It gives you hope. And that fellowship continues to give you hope with the contacts you make. Sunday, here in town, we have a medical freedom rally at Shaw and Clovis Avenue. That's from 2 to 4. They've been having 40, 50 people, which is encouraging. And that's been happening weekly. I don't usually make those because I work a lot on the weekends because of my other job, my real job. And I would encourage you to get out there. This medical freedom issue isn't over. If you look at what Sacramento is doing, they're lining up a bunch of bills that are telling us you've got to get the shot with no thought about whether or not you have natural immunity. That's the part that's ridiculous. And then we look at the new report from Pfizer that the courts forced open, and there are real consequences. We have absolute evidence of that. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm saying become informed. We should have informed consent on this, and you should make your choice. But demanding from the top, and that's essentially what they're doing. They're demanding one of our rights, and once they can control us then in this way, do you think they're going to let go? California isn't even out of its state of emergency. Certain types of politicians, I would say even conservative politicians, often don't give up power once they have it. Kind of the nature of it. But it is on the left, they seem to cherish that power. And we need to stand against that. Tuesday. This is Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. at the Hall of Records. There is a Board of Supervisors meeting. I would always encourage people to go out and talk to government. They need to know where you're at. Don't hide at home. I know that there are a group of people that are going to speak about election integrity and what they want from the Board of Supervisors. They want an audit. They want us to get rid of a lot of the problems. Unfortunately, I don't think the Board of Supervisors has some of the power to do that, but they could make a stand. You know, this is one we got to fix at a state level. I would venture to say that somebody like Rachel Hamm, who's running for Secretary of State, is a better solution. And supporting her would be a better solution because she's got a lot of ideas on how to fix our elections. And the Secretary of State has the power to do a whole lot of it. Clean the voter rolls, limit some of the mail-in stuff, have ballots that can't be copied, and she's got plans for all those. Final event, Tuesday night, is the Kingsburg chapter of Constitutionalist for California. They meet at 15,000 Rose Avenue at 6:30 p.m., so that's a Tuesday night, 15,000 Rose Avenue, 6:30 p.m. And fighter pilot and congressional candidate Matt Stoll will be speaking. You hear my excitement? Is there any? I've met and talked to the man several times. It'll be interesting. With all that being said, it's time to start with the show. So, I would like to introduce my boss, El Grande Queso, Super Guillermo Moreno.
Well,
welcome.
I don't think I've ever been introduced as the Big Cheese. I like it. All right, that's my new name around here, the Big Cheese. And you know, I the colors of the station are yellow and black, so you know that it kind of fits. You know, the Big Cheese. And your pronunciation, by the way, is on point. You know, you're probably using your privilege. You know, you're using your privilege and just you know how to say things because you're privileged.
I learned that privilege at Winchell Elementary, which is in one of the poorest schools to this day near the fairgrounds.
Yeah,
Little elementary school in Fresno Unified. And the first year I was the only white kid, so I had to learn some Spanish. I then made the huge mistake after I moved on from there of not really speaking for years.
Yeah.
So I lost most of my Spanish, but some of the words stuck.
Yeah.
And I tend to say them like the Oaxacans say them around here.
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome.
That's kind of my accent, which is kind of hilarious.
It is kind of funny. I like it.
Well, what's it like running a studio?
You know, it's definitely, radio is a different beast. It's a different animal because you have regular radio industry and then you have conservative talk. And what I really was excited about coming on your show was talking about the state of conservative radio, because honestly, Eric, I'm pretty worried about it. I'm worried about conservative radio. You know, people have been saying for years now, conservative radio is going to die. You know, nobody wants to listen to it. Conservative radio is on its way out. And especially after the death of Rush Limbaugh, it seems that the industry is kind of inching away towards a different kind of a hybrid format. So I think it's really important for people to understand, you know, whether you're, you know, listening here locally in the Fresno metro area or whether you're a part of the national audience and you're listening from wherever, most conservative radio stations are owned by large companies as a cluster. So they have the conservative radio station, and then they have a hip hop, and then they have a country, and then they have, like an old school. So conservative radio stations are more of a, hey, you know, it's a good revenue base. It gives us a different listener. And then every 2 years, it's political season. So it's a big money maker. So you have these big companies, and I'll say it because I don't mind saying, you have iHeart, you have Cumulus, and they have conservative radio stations. But don't forget, at the end of the day, these big corporations tend to lean heavily left. So, you know, they own conservative radio stations. So when I say and I tell people, like, yeah, I'm really worried about conservative radio, because at the end of the day, the ownership scale of the big radio stations, they own conservative formats. Now, if you have a station that in a cluster, a conservative radio station that's, doing really well, billing really well, they're not going to get rid of it. What they'll do is they'll start changing the format. So the radio industry, after the death of Rush, was saying, hey, look, that hardcore conservative listener, they're not going to come back to conservative radio and listen to that station like they would before. So what we have to do is, they're thinking the Rush listener is essentially going to be gone or die off, because they're
thinking they're going to
age out. Yeah. So they're saying, okay, what we got to do is to try and keep this format relevant is we need to start being more lifestyle. You know, we need to start introducing possibly another point of view, because, you know, as a business, you're feeling like, okay, we've maxed out our customers. What do we got to do? You got to go get more customers, right? Mm-hmm. And if you can't get that strong conservative listener back, where do you go? Well, then you start moving to the center, and then you start toying with, well, what if we have more independent or even more liberal hosts? So, and you've seen some major market conservative radio stations do just that. And I have a lot of people that say, oh my goodness, I used to listen to XYZ station. I can't listen to it anymore. What are they doing? And it's actually a very calculated industry business specific move. Whereas at the end of the day, you know, they're not about the mission. And I feel very comfortable telling everyone that, you know, when you listen to conservative radio on these big iHearts or these big Cumulus, they're not about the conservative mission.
No, but some of the hosts are.
Some of the hosts are, don't get me wrong. I think some more than others, but at the end of the day, the amount of money that they're going to bring in is going to be, you know, the heartstring that matters. You know, they're not going to be out there, you know, on the front lines. You know, right. even though some say, you know, we're on the front lines, where, you know, no, you're really not. You work for a liberal company. The liberal company at any point in time will say, hey, by the way, we don't have budget for you anymore, so your program is off and we'll just run syndication. Thank you so much for being here for as long as you want. So this is why, you know, when you ask me, hey, how is the radio biz going? I really enjoy it because, you know, all the decisions are literally made right here. You know, I don't have to run it up to corporate. I don't have to worry about what I say and then someone in Atlanta ripping me off the air. If I don't like what I say, my family says, hey, why'd you say that? I still have the airtime. And we're able to also offer you know, airtime to a lot of individuals that maybe might not have ever, you know, been on the radio. So
you're looking at one.
Well, yeah, not only that, but we have a lot of Christian, you know, programming, you know, and so I love the radio business. I love the format, and I think we're here to stay, the local ones. I do worry about the larger ones because, you know, the industry will start going into that realm where they'll start taking off local hosts because it's not financially you know, plausible anymore, and they'll just run syndication. So, but
then we lose something important.
Oh, you do, yeah, because all politics is local
first.
It's local and always. And so when you lose these stations or these local hosts because of budgetary reasons or for whatever reason, you know, it's easy as a radio station to put syndication. You know, there's so many, and there's hundreds of talkers that are available that we just flip a switch and we have programming, but they're not going to tell you about your local school board meeting.
Well, but we even see that on FM radio.
Oh, exactly.
Regular music.
Exactly.
They're syndicated hosts for what you think is your local station, and they do little blurbs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is, and it is a trick of the trade. And I'll tell you this too, and this is why I believe that, you know, conservative radio is going to enter into some troubled waters, the big guys, because you're seeing already in other formats in country, in Spanish and hip hop, they are cutting back on their local personalities because they're just not making enough money. COVID has hit them. COVID has impacted the radio industry even greater because businesses aren't open. They're not going to advertise. So you have, and I was some crazy statistic where I think it was like 70% of radio personalities don't have jobs anymore. They're all running syndication, and that's because these stations are struggling.
Wow, did not know that. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, and because, I mean, it's easier to run a syndicated host. It's easy, Eric. You know,
there's nobody to manage.
There's nothing to manage. The computer does it all. And then you tell the host, hey, host, read me, you know, coming live from Fresno every morning, you know, and they'll send you the blurb. You plop it in, and bada bang, bada boom. It's that local connection. That's why I'm really worried about conservative radio, because if you have their larger music formats already making the cuts, it's only a matter of time. And don't forget, at the head of a lot of these companies are liberal, you know, are liberal suits. So it's not like
they're looking for an excuse anyway.
You know, but at the end of the day, a lot of these conservative radio stations are their number one or two station in their group. So everyone loves money except the ones that are really struggling. So and that's where you have those legendary signals in those areas that have been around for 50, 60 years. Those aren't going anywhere. It's the other ones that are.
You say that, but you know, there's another FM station that supposedly does conservative talk that I got to the point where I couldn't listen. Right here, local.
Yeah.
Because they're quasi washed down conservatism, and I have tons of friends, dozens of friends that used to listen to this.
Yeah.
Competing station. I'm not even going to name them. People can figure out.
Yeah.
They're kind of the big name, but they're no longer a truly conservative station.
Well, and you have to ask yourself, everything that I've been saying, you know, at the end of the day, decisions have to be made as far as programming. And here's the other thing. that's kind of an inside industry. Stations normally have what's called program directors, PDs, and they're the ones that are in charge of essentially, making the station sound not the same, but just making sure the hosts are not in line, but someone overtly cares about it and says, okay, yeah, if you have a host that comes out and says, you know what, guys, conservative radio host today, I think I might be pro-choice. If someone comes on this station and says that, more than likely I'll have a conversation with them afterwards saying, hey, listen, it's not with our mission. I respect your view, but a lot of times, the PD is the one that kind of wrangles everybody in and makes sure the station has it. And you wouldn't even get to that point where you have someone on the station. So remember what I said, about 70% of people are no longer there anymore. So now you don't have that direct oversight. So you don't have PDs in these stations. Now you have just radio hosts going on air and just doing their thing. There's no one managing them because there's hardly anybody there. And don't forget what I said originally. A lot of these stations are saying, wow, you know what? That conservative person that used to listen to Rush and used to stay on the station for a long time isn't there anymore. We got to grow the listenership. So how do you grow the listenership is if you feel that you're maxed out on your conservative base, you got to start going and say, okay, well, maybe we can be a little bit more independent, maybe a little bit more liberal and start getting these listeners.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. So when we come back, I want to point out that there is some hope because COVID changed the whole world. So I want to talk a little bit about how there are now groups of people that didn't have their eyes open that do. Those are potential new listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. And today I am joined by Super Guillermo.
The big cheese.
The big cheese. Grande queso.
There you go. You say that really well. And I appreciate being on. Radio is a topic that I love to talk about, obviously, and I never get the opportunity because you can't be, I can't talk about radio on my daily show. I just can't. So I always, I secretly want to be on everyone's show and talk about, ask me about radio. I'll tell you, I'll dish, but you mentioned you mentioned our competitors and, at the end of the day, we're all in the same fight.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in the same fight. We all want my dream is to have all of us, one day do like do some kind of, evening where we're together, where we, because there's a lot of great conservative on-air talent in the Fresno metro area.
Absolutely.
And
that's why I didn't mention them by name.
Yeah. And we have a lot of listeners. And I think if we were to combine forces, even if it's one day a year, we could really do some damage. I think everyone's got great. I think they're honestly my favorite show. Besides my own show is, I can't say, but I do have I do have a favorite show in the market that I think is fantastic. And don't forget, and I never used to be this guy like artsy fartsy. Like I don't hate art, but I'm not going to go to a museum for, like 20 hours. Like, oh my goodness, what was this artist thinking? Wow. I really, no, but honestly, radio is an art.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think I'm crazy, but it really is. It's really difficult. At the same time, it's really easy because a lot of people are like, dude, how do you talk that long? It really is an art because you have to figure out a way to capture the listener's attention while at the same time they've already heard everything that day and I'm on the afternoon. So you got to make it interesting. You got to make it fun. At the end of the day, the listener that listens to me in the afternoon, they're getting off of work. They're tired. They've had a long day. They don't like Biden. They know what's going on. They know the price at the pump because they just pumped it for, $6. So I like to bring more of a, I want to entertain as well,
But you have to.
Yeah.
Now, talking about essentially the person that set the pathway for the history of this business, as far as I'm concerned, Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, yeah.
I get that there were people that made it possible for Rush to do what he did, but Rush is the one that changed talk industry. And one of the most important things he did was he brought entertainment. Before that, your options were listening to William F. Buckley.
Mm-hmm.
Well, brilliant man, but he's not entertaining. It's just as dry as...
That's a good point, yeah.
Dry as could be. It's like watching paint dry. He's brilliant, but at the same time, there's no entertainment factor. Rush brought that entertainment factor.
And funny you mention that because there are a lot of brilliant people that are on the radio, but they're just so dry. And the other thing is, they could have like one or two good segments, and I'm like fist pumping, like, yeah. And then they go into this intellectual, math equation, and I'm like, it hurts me because like you're losing the listener. Like the listener is going to be like, and so much of conservative talk is also topical. One of the things that they tell me when I first entered the industry is like, hey, abortion is one of those topics where, people really don't like to hear it. You're talking about, killing babies and stuff like that. So just be careful when you talk about it, because you're going to lose listeners. And it's proven, apparently, there's studies on it, when you talk about abortion, that you actually lose listeners. And this was when I was because I've spent time across the street at corporate radio. And thankfully I was never censored or anything like that. But I mean, there are topics that, they say steer away from because they don't, bring in the right,
Well, it's a topic that you should speak about with grace.
It is, but
it's still, kind of something that's horrifying to me.
It really, but it has to be talked about, and that's why,
absolutely,
and that's why I love the station, because no one's going to tell me like, oh, okay, great, yeah, that's what you can advise me. I'm still going to do it. You know what I mean? It's my opinion, it's my show, so I'm going to be able to do it. But you brought up Rush, and I want to bring up a good example. So I was, and I don't know if you know this, I was raised Democrat.
I'm sorry.
I
look. My parents tried to raise me Democrat, and I started fighting and arguing against it at 6 years old.
Maybe we should do is because I have a lot of conservatives always come to me and say, hey, little Timmy they're liberal and they're very conservative. What do I do, Guillermo? I'm like, well, I don't have the answer for you. I don't know your kid. And so you mentioned, pretend you're a Democrat, because they always want to rebel, right? So tell conservative parents to tell that we're totally liberal in this household. I'm conservative. So that's the point. No, but I was raised Democrat. And I had a summer job out of high school, and it was cleaning laundry rooms and painting curbs, the fire lanes, and taking off spider webs in high school. So that can be mundane and boring. I mean, for 8 hours, you're just, with a little duster. And so I bought a little tiny at the 99-cent store, like this little radio, and it took one AA. And the only station it got was a conservative station with Rush Limbaugh on it during the time that I was working in the mornings.
You are a lucky man.
I was. So when I was like, man, I don't want to listen to this. I just want to listen to some music, some alternative jams. I was a millennial. I'm still a millennial. Obviously, I never leave it. And so I started listening to Rush. And the first time I listened, I was like, man, this guy, gosh, he thinks he's so smart and all that. And I kept listening. A couple of weeks went by, like, he makes a really good point. And I was a Democrat still. And then, towards the latter end of the summer, I was like, man, yeah, he has us on that. But I'm just listening because I want to see what the other side says. And before you know it, it was as if Rush was talking to me and saying, hey, think about this. You got a brain. Look at this. And it was never, because Democrats, they do get a lot of stuff fed to them like, hey, this is it. Climate change is happening. The only way to do it is to do this, do this, do this. I was like, oh, yeah, well, yeah, man, that's the Democrat way. So when I started listening to Rush, and it was entertaining, he made me laugh, and I went from not agreeing with him because I was a Democrat to, by the end of the summer, really respecting him. I still didn't become a Republican at that time, but it was like, wow, he planted that seed.
No, absolutely.
And I think that's what we do on conservative radio, because so many people, and there's a lot of lefties that listen. Good. A lot of them. I'm on this, and I don't know if you know this, I'm on this immigrant affairs committee for the city of Fresno, because the city of Fresno is not welcoming, apparently. So I got appointed to this thing by Gary Bredefeld. Love Gary, and they all knew me. All the liberals knew me. As soon as they're like, oh my God. And so one day, I think this might have been the January meeting or the December meeting. I forgot what I was talking about, but I think they wanted to put a flyer in the utility bill that let illegal individuals know about their rights in the city of Fresno. When you get the utility bill. And I'm like, okay, first off, when you're getting a bill, you don't look through all the...
No, you find the bill and you throw the rest away.
It's stupid. And so I was going on, and I was like, this is... Like, you're going to waste money. By the way, I don't even think you can legally do this. You're kind of commandeering the city of Fresno's system, putting in whatever you want. Like, you can't... Like, that's illegal. Has anybody talked to an attorney about this? And then the very liberal guy said, you know what, Guillermo, your heart's not in the right place.
Okay, but they will always say that, not allow
Oh yeah,
They don't want rules or
Yeah.
rule of law or constitution to get in the
Nope.
way of what they want.
No, and he said your heart's not in the right place. And this wasn't the first time. And they said, Guillermo, if you really don't want to be here, just resign. Your heart's not in the right place. And I said, you know what? I'm really tired of this. I'm really tired of people saying, and because I'm the only conservative. Fun factoid: Gary also appointed 1, 2, 3 other conservatives. They did one meeting and said, I'm out. So I've been there since the inception. Thankfully, I'm actually not going to be on the next one because I've now moved out of Fresno. So I can't be on it. Darn. But anyhow, the guy goes, Guillermo. And I said, I'm tired of you guys telling me that my heart's not in the right place. I'm tired of this. And he goes, Guillermo, I'm a big fan of yours. And I was like, he goes, I really am. So, but your heart's not in the right place. And I thought to myself, I didn't know the guy listened to me. Like, this guy, on the far left from the Bay Area. And he said, I'm a big fan. And I never thought that he would, listen to me more than 4 minutes and say, hey, like, I agree with you. So at that point in time, I think I learned something, which is, doesn't matter how far left they are, conservative radio is also that kind of like, I don't know how to say this. It's also that avenue where it's like, you can sit on the car. It's just you and the radio. Your other liberal friends aren't going to know you're listening. It's
their secret pleasure.
It's their secret pleasure. It really is. It's like, hey, and a lot of liberals do it because they know deep. And I think a lot of the people that voted for Biden, they have buyer's remorse. So where are they turning right now to? Conservative radio.
Yeah.
And when I go on the air, I know my audience. I have a conservative audience, but there are shows where, and sometimes this is probably where a lot of people feel like, oh man, like, that conservative radio host, what are they doing? Like, why are they saying that? Why are they being rhino? You got some rhinos out there, hosts too. But I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make a play for that person. But at some point in time, you got to bring it back and say, hey, you can't change who you are and be a rhino just to get people into the party. Like you can do it nicely. It's not what you say, but how you say it. And that's, and I don't know if
you don't have to go to the rhino stretch. You can just be a little less divisive in how you say it.
Exactly.
And stay true to who you are.
Yeah. And we have facts. What I'm really proud of as being a conservative is whatever topic that I stand on, I have facts that back it up. So, I can back it. If I take a rhino, like I'm trying to think, like, do I have any rhino positions? And that's going to probably come around and bite me. Let me think here. I don't know if I do have any rhino position. You know me. What you've listened to me. Give me a rhino position that maybe I have.
Well, my understanding is you're a vegetarian.
Yeah. Yes, you know what? Yes,
that's a little questionable, but you're a good guy otherwise.
It's funny when I go to these Republican events and, they're like, I'm sitting around the table and they, because they all have the cater, the big steak in there. And then I grab the waitress as they put the steak in front of me and I'm like, hey, can you bring me the vegetarian one? And everyone around the table is like, dude, how can you be a Republican and not eat meat? It's a religious thing for me, but yeah, you're right. That might be the most.
I thought it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it's, I do feel shame. Like, I do feel vegetarian. Like, they shame me because, anyhow.
I grew up with my mom being a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And craved meat. Always.
I
don't eat a ton of it, but I don't feel right if I don't have it
if you
at least
don't
once a day.
I went to a college where the cafeteria was all vegetarian. I didn't have a car. Couldn't get off campus. So it didn't start out as, hey, I want to be vegetarian. I just couldn't eat any meat. And so when I came back on Thanksgiving break, like the meat just didn't sit well with my stomach. It was weird. Like I just didn't like the taste. So it was one of those things where I went like, I don't know if I can eat this anymore. Because anyhow.
Shifting gears. As a master talk show host.
I don't know about that, but I am a talk show host.
Do you speak Bidenese?
Bidenese. I do forget. Yeah, I do. Sometimes I forget and the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it is amazing to me how we have somebody in charge who often he'll speak for 3 minutes. I'll play it back and I can't figure out what he just said.
Yeah. I've now been in the radio biz through 3 presidents. And Biden is definitely my favorite because his audio bits are just fantastic. You know, when you played Obama, he's kind of like boring you, you know, and you played Trump. Well, no, Trump had some great ones too.
Trump had some great
He
ones.
did, but Biden is just a home run every time. That's a whole nother topic, but I do enjoy playing his clips. And yeah, he is hard to follow.
He is hard to follow.
He is hard to understand.
My point is that kind of creates an opportunity.
Mhm.
People, you know, the left doesn't dare make fun of the left, or it just
That's
finally just started to. You're aware that Saturday Night Live just recently did a COVID dinner party skit.
Oh, I didn't watch that one. No.
It was actually funny. Occasionally they're funny, but people like political satire, and one of the places they can find it is on talk radio.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the reasons why Rush was so successful. Political satire, illustrating the absurd with absurdity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'll ever be Rush Limbaugh, but I do have a smidgen of his skill.
You're on your way. You're on your way.
I'm on my way.
You know, a fun fact about Rush, a lot of people don't know, is he actually did a lot of show prep. Rush was tons of show prep because people thought like he just went on air and like, you know, it was greatness. And I tell young people this, you know, the 10,000 hour rule. And I tell kids this, like, hey, look, man, it doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does. Like, what kind of life you want to live? You want to live in a shoebox or do you want to live in a mansion? I tell kids this. I say, look, in life, you're going to work hard no matter what. What changes is how much you're going to get paid for that hard work. And I tell them, whatever you do, try to do 10,000 hours of it because you're going to be the master. You're going to know the industry. And that's how great, you know, that's how great people became great. And you read, and even though I don't like, you know, Bill Gates or any of those tech people, but you read their story. I mean, from high school, I mean, the guy was trying to figure it out. The Beatles just didn't hit the stage. I mean, they spent countless thousands of hours in bars.
Right.
So I tell people, you know, in Rush Limbaugh, the greatest, you know, he did show prep still. I mean, he would never want to just crack a mic and not be prepared. So I always tell young people, you know, be prepared in life, try to achieve greatness, and whatever it is you do, just dedicate yourself fully to it, and magical things will happen. Because Rush Limbaugh didn't come from a family of lawyers, right? And they were like, "You're going to be a lawyer," and I'm like, "Oh my god, you're going to become a radio host? Like, there's no money in that." Boy, did he fool everybody, right?
Well, and I don't believe his dad lived long enough to see him become truly successful.
Oh,
which always bothered him.
I could see that. I could see that.
You know, because his dad really didn't approve.
Yeah, that's tough. You know, that really is tough. But I mean, yeah. So I miss Rush. I mean, he was on the competing station all the time. We never had him. But you
got what I consider to be the closest and best thing possible after him.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And you would be third. I was thinking of Bongino.
Oh, okay. All right. No. And Bongino does a great, and he's new in the industry. I actually had a fight for him. And he does a good show. He really does, because he has that life experience. And here's the other thing. I think radio hosts are best when they don't necessarily spend all their life in radio, because you want to know, like, hey, that person has been out there. You know, they've signed the back of a check, the front of a check. They've done things in life. I'm not saying people that have been in radio their whole life aren't good hosts, but it's different. You know, they're able to relate better. And Dan is, I mean, he's just a guy where you can just sit down and you want to have a drink with. You know, and at the end of the day, the most successful hosts are those that you feel are like your friends. And here's some industry, some inside baseball. You know, they always say you want the radio host. You know, you always want to feel like they're right next to you in your car talking to you. You know, so when you're driving in the car, you feel, and you felt that with Rush, right? You felt that Rush.
I was in high school driving to Sacramento in either late '86 or early '87.
Oh, so you saw the career.
I saw Rush before he was national.
Oh, wow.
He didn't have but just a tiny handful of stations at that point in California.
That's awesome. But you always felt that he was talking to you.
Oh, absolutely. And when he's talking about Rio Linda, for me, it was real, because I've been there.
Yeah.
It is as bad as he made fun of. Today, it's not, but it was.
Yeah. And here's the thing, because there's a lot of conservative talk now is going to two people shows. You notice that, right?
Yeah.
Two people, and that's always really hard. And it's hard because, and that's two people hosting. You know, Rush was always, you know, he didn't need another person. And I think when you do two people's shows, it takes away that the guys next to you or the gals next to you in that passenger seat, because now it feels like you're listening to a conversation happening. Like you're on the outside listening to a conversation, whereas Rush made you feel that he was talking to you. And that was the great success about Rush. I don't like two people shows. It's really hard to do really well. Morning shows, you can kind of get away with it, but it's tough because you feel like you're watching two people talk.
No, I totally see that. I've gone a different route as my getting my feet wet because I'm a little over 6 months in.
Yeah. Well, but no, you have guests on, but you're a one-person show. I mean, those two people show, they're rough. You know, you can have a guest on, but that doesn't count as a host with you. But you know what I'm talking about, like those.
Right, but Rush most of the time didn't have a guest.
He didn't. No, he didn't. Rush didn't need a guest. I mean, he was just so he was just so good at it.
But he said minimum 3 hours show prep.
Oh yeah,
minimum. He talked about it many times.
Oh,
minimum.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And then he had staff once he became really successful that helped him with that show prep. So there was really his 3 hours plus, however much he paid other people to help him.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's true. There's a lot of support staff that goes into to making a show like that happen. But I miss them. I really do. You know, it's tough.
You mentioned how corporate conservative radio works. I'd say that there's another big threat to conservative radio in that, and we've already seen this in TV, where, for instance, Pfizer, you watch the nightly news and you will continually see Pfizer or Moderna or one of big pharma names continually, and they're the main advertiser.
Yeah.
And with a lot of businesses, as soon as an advertiser becomes the main person, that main person has a lot of pull. So I think that's why some of the censorship and why some of the watering down of the opinions is happening.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because I mean, I listen to everything. Because I mean, as a business, you want to know your competition really well. So I listen to everybody. I listen to music stations as well. And you do hear the Pfizer has spent a lot of money, as so has the California Department of Health. So in the way some of these things work, because I mean, you'll hear a Pfizer commercial. I'm pretty sure. I think I heard one on our station once or twice.
Yes, I have.
So what happens is we get these syndicated shows, and the syndicated, and it's more inside baseball. Man, you're getting it today, Eric. You're getting all this juicy background information. When we take on Dan Bongino, he owns certain amount of time on our airwaves because he provides us with the show. So he has his own commercial set, and advertisers like Pfizer, Moderna will buy with these big, especially conservatives, because they're like, hey, they know people are listening that don't want to take the vaccine. Right. So Pfizer will make a big buy on Dan Bongino or Cumulus, who syndicates him. And what I say at the very beginning, a lot of these suits are liberal. So they'll get the money, they'll put the commercial in there, they'll funnel it down to conservative radio, and that's why you're hearing commercials that, because we can't override that when it airs. That's part of your agreement. It is part of our agreement. So I mean, and with some people, with some of our stuff that comes into our station, I have said, hey, listen, and I'll be more inside baseball here. I said, I don't want any of the male in hand. Can I say that on your show?
People can handle it if it's fit for radio. It's fine.
The male enhancement stuff. There's always these. I hear people. I'm tired of hearing about Navage, Guillermo. Navage. I'm tired of hearing that. I'm tired of hearing the tax thing, and I'm tired of hearing these pills. And I'm like, hey, listen, I don't have any control over it. Like, that's the thing. I do have minimal control, and that's what I told this one agency. Like, dude, please don't send me any of those male ones. Like, I don't want them. And sometimes they're like, okay, Guillermo, that's fine. Like, you can run this one instead. So we do have some kind of thing, but I can't call. No. Dan doesn't even know what's going on. So even
as an independent businessman, your hands are still tied in some ways.
We are, because it's either that or I can't take the show. It's one of those, kind of, David and Goliath.
Right. And there would be the same ties if it was a different show.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Same thing. Like there's there's times when I'm like, oh man, I don't like that commercial. Or I'm like, ugh, but I got to sit through it. I don't like your news breaks. Yeah. You and a lot of people. So this has been it's been a constant struggle because I have options. I'm not going to lie. I have options. Not a lot of them. And we'll be honest, it's ABC News. ABC News, we know where they tend to lean. Ironically, when we first took them was during the Trump administration because we used to have town hall news. And I mean, do you know who town hall news is?
I really don't know.
Not a lot of people. So that was my problem where, credibility matters, even though you're like, Guillermo, I don't know if ABC is that credible. And during the Biden administration, as soon as he got in, the complaints that we got, they were just so numerous on ABC because they did like a whole 360 where they were just saying, there's the insurrectionists, and then they referred to Trump as the former occupant of the White House. I remember I was like, and I called my rep and I was like, hey, like, what do you got? Why is this happening? And, we're one station out of, like 600 that take it. I'm not a big fan of it, but at the end of the day, and it's mine and my family's decision where and to be honest with you, the president of the station is Lisa Moreno. You know her very well. And everyone but me is saying, take it off. Lisa Moreno wants it off. And I always have to have this conversation because, I've been informed that, hey, listen, the big three, ABC, CBS, and NBC. Listen, and NBC and CBS are together. When you have one of those, it's legendary. People, there's an amount of credibility, and they also, because they're so big, they have people everywhere.
Well, they still have the reach. I strongly question whether they have any credibility in today's world with the conservatives.
I agree.
With the moderates, maybe.
With conservatives, they have no credibility. I'll tell you that. I mean, when we're out as a station, that's the number one complaint I get. When I first got them, I put their logo on. We went to the Big Fresno Fair the first year, and I put their logo on our branding. People came in and said, "I can't believe you have ABC," and I'm just like, but here's the last point. I would say every like minute, we have audio updated like that. Not a lot of news services can provide that.
Well, that's pretty cool. We're going to go ahead and take our last break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. So when we come back, and before we come back, I wanted to say thank you to all my viewers. I wanted to say thank you to all my listeners. If you can't listen to us on Saturdays from 3 to 4, there is still the opportunity to catch up on shows on Spotify, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So those are new possibilities. When we come back, I kind of wanted to talk about some of the new frontier in radio because, my show's a hybrid model.
Yeah.
I'm a little torn on that. I think that it has to happen.
Yeah.
But, it's also takes away some of the very personal part of just being on the radio, just being listened to. When you add the visual, it changes things.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. I am talking today with Super Guillermo. Grande Queso, the boss.
I'm going to cut that up and use it on my show.
You are welcome.
The Grande Queso, the big cheese. Well, thank God I'm not vegan because I say, hey man, I can't be cheese. I got to be vegan cheese, which is horrible, by the way. It doesn't melt the same way.
I had a girlfriend that was a vegan for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got hauled to a restaurant, and they tried to convince me the food was good, and it was the only things that were good were the vegetables.
We have good food. But man, a lot of people don't know how to make it. There's the best Mexican vegan is in Las Vegas, and it's called Tacotarian. I swear, you could feed that to some people, and they wouldn't know the difference. And there's some people that would. But
I think I would.
I don't know. Wherever in Vegas at the same time, I'll take you to Tacotarian. But go ahead.
I'm not unwilling to try it. So the new frontier is all of these hybrid models. You're seeing an explosion of people that have something to say,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they're not connected with the radio, unfortunately, a lot of times. I like the fact that I'm connected with the radio and I'm doing both.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the small podcasters would be wise to affiliate themselves with a radio station, and it would give them a much broader reach. Because in my case, I'm an activist first.
Yeah.
Wednesday night, I was at the Fresno School Board and spoke. Unfortunately, I did not make my 20th consecutive in Clovis because by the time Fresno was done, Clovis, I texted a friend that was there, was also done.
20th consecutive. That's
I didn't quite make it. I got to 19 in Clovis.
That's incredible. That's commitment.
And spoke at 18 in Clovis. And I've spoken at every Fresno I've been to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I agree with you. I think the hybrid model, audio is changing. Media is changing. Consumption is changing. You have a lot of great podcasts now, and a lot of the conservative radio hosts also podcast their show too.
Most of them, I would say.
Yeah, they do. They do. The thing is and like you mentioned, when I first started doing it, there was a lot of pressure saying, "Hey, man, you also got to do social. You got to do social. You got to do video. You got to do video." And at a time, I even entered into agreement with the local television station. Radio and television and visual don't mix at all well. And I remember we had a radio consultant at the time and say, "Hey, it's a different show because you're playing to the camera and you can tell, your listeners can tell you're playing to the camera." I was like, "They can? Like, it's a different show?" And it really is, and so a lot of people are like, "Guillermo, where can I watch your show?" I'm like, "Well, you can't watch it." Like, "Why not?" And I was like, "Well, because I don't air it anymore on Facebook or YouTube or anything like that, or Periscope, because it's a different show. And my primary target is the radio, and it's a totally different show. What I tell people is they're all different. The way you speak on radio won't necessarily be the way you speak on a video, because they're looking at you. You're looking at them. It'd be kind of weird. It is a different show. A lot of it can be the same. The big guys know how to do it well. And like Rush, he just had the cam. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a fully produced. It's different. And I'm not sure Rush would have ever wanted to do. I mean, just put the camera up there. And I think I like that better, putting a camera, and that's about it. I'll let you in on another little secret. Eventually, we're going to demo this whole area. And it is going to be more of a video dominated set, because that's where everything's going. I'm not ignorant as well. Like, I know where everything's going, and you got to be visual, you got to be appealing. I mean, that's what we're going to do. My show, I'm going to pride myself in always trying to stay old school, and maybe one day I'll do the Rush, I'll follow Rush and just put a cam, right there and just not play to it. But I get it. A lot of people want to be able to see it.
No, I wish I could be where you were at, but what I found is, I don't have the best slot.
No.
There's not a ton of people on Saturdays.
Well, I'll get you to guest host for me. There you go.
And that's okay. I'm not complaining. I'm thankful for the opportunity. But what I realized is, okay, there's not very many people listening then. Here's the frontier for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked on Facebook.
Yeah.
Now that I'm on YouTube and Spotify, I'm working on getting those posted. As a regular show, I'm connected to a couple different websites where it's on every week.
Yeah. And
it's already up.
And you're getting a lot of hits, I'm sure.
Not as many as I'd like, but we're working on it.
And
it takes time.
It does. It's like any business. It is, you gotta grow it. And one of the things that, I forgot my thought. Look at this. I have Bidenese here. You know the thing.
Come on, man.
Where was I going? I had a great thought. Oh man.
Well, we're winding down. We're about a minute 45. So why are you hopeful?
Why am I hopeful for?
For you say you're concerned about conservative talk radio. Is there a solution, and why are you hopeful that maybe we can make it through this?
Well, I'm going to do the Nancy Pelosi response.
We need to be a little drunk.
Gotta go like this. Mark my words. Conservative radio is not dead, and it's not going to die, because at the end of the day, despite what some people might think is like the conservative listener is not going to be there anymore, the conservative listener is still going to tune in. They're still going to come back, but more so, this political climate is making it to where we're growing and we have new listeners that were independent. I don't think the far left people are ever going to tune in, but you have a lot of those quote unquote JFK Democrats that are tuning in and they're saying, "Hey, I like what they're saying. I get it." And we're here to make, I mean, I'll be honest, we're here to make money, but that's not my primary focus. My primary focus is to grow the message, to grow the party, and to grow conservatism. I got a lot of plans. You know, I would love to see, and I'll let you in on some insight. I would love to see a conservative Spanish 24 hours because the Latino market is where it's at. So my goal is once, you know, any opportunity I get, everything that we built here is going to go straight into the next thing, which is to get a 24-hour conservative Spanish going.
So I got to improve my Spanish dramatically.
Yes. And you know what? I'll tell you what, maybe we can do an Eric and El Queso show together, you know, Eric and Cheese. Cheese with Eric. You know, that's where it's going. And the Latino market is ready for something like that. They're ready for a Spanish Rush Limbaugh. It ain't going to be me, but trust me, you get someone like Rush Limbaugh that's able to do that in Spanish, the Republican Party is going to grow, and we're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And it would have all started with conservative
And it's
radio.
already happening, but we need a leader like that.
Yeah.
Well, this is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town.
Thank you.
And I want to say thank you to my listeners. If you like what I'm doing, please please subscribe. If you just like me on the radio, or if you don't, you know, I believe in free speech.
Keep listening.
Yeah. Keep listening. You could call in and tell me what a terrible job I'm doing. You wouldn't be the first one. Well, I want to thank my guests for joining me today. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Anytime.
And I think that's a wrap.